Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every soul's journey when silence speaks louder than words, when presence becomes a privilege, not a promise. I have lived long enough to learn that the more you give yourself away to everyone, the less they remember your worth. But when you step back, when you honor your spirit and your time, suddenly the world begins to listen. You are no longer the echo in someone else's story. You become the voice that cannot be forgotten. You see, it is not arrogance to protect your peace. It is wisdom born from pain, patience, and prayer. There is a quiet strength that lives in your absence, a strength that few ever learn to master because the world teaches us to always show up, to always give, to always be present, even when our spirit is weary and our soul is whispering for rest. But I have found that when you step back from the noise, when you pull yourself out of every conversation, every demand, every space that drains your light, that is when your true power begins to speak. It is in the pauses, in the moments when you are not seen, that people start to see you differently. The heart learns through absence what it once took for granted in presence. We are taught from childhood to be kind, to be available, to say yes when others call our name. We think that being needed is the same as being valued, that showing up for everyone will earn us love. But there is a dangerous confusion between love and dependency, between respect and convenience. Too often, we are not loved for who we are, but for how much of ourselves we are willing to give away. And so we offer our time, our energy, our laughter, our tears, believing that if we give enough, we will finally be seen. But that is not how true worth works. When you give endlessly, your presence becomes ordinary. When you are always reachable, people stop reaching with intention. The power of absence is not about disappearing. It is about teaching the world how to cherish you. It is about letting silence become your teacher. Sometimes the lesson is for them, sometimes the lesson is for you. There is a sacred kind of peace that only comes when you stop explaining yourself to everyone, when you allow distance to reveal truth. Because truth always comes to the surface when noise fades. If they only appreciated you when you were constantly near, then your absence will show them the hollow echo of what they lost. And if they still don't see it, it means your absence is cleansing your space of those who were never meant to honor your presence in the first place. I remember hearing a woman say, "They didn't know what they had until I stopped showing up." There was pain in her voice, but there was also pride, because in that moment she understood that her energy had been taken for granted. You see, we often mistake accessibility for connection, but connection does not mean constant contact. Connection means presence with purpose. When you learn to give space to yourself, to others, you create room for value to grow. The distance does not destroy love, it defines it. It separates the genuine from the convenient, the deep from the shallow, the temporary from the true. There is something mysterious about absence. When the sun sets, we do not forget it. We look forward to its return. We miss its warmth. We notice its beauty. The same is true for you. When you stop being too available, people begin to notice your light. They begin to realize that your laughter filled the room, that your kindness made the air softer, that your wisdom was a comfort they had overlooked. They start to understand that you were not ordinary. You were the calm in their chaos, the peace in their noise. But they only see it when you are no longer there to give it freely. We live in a time where everyone wants constant attention. Phones buzz, messages flood, the world demands instant replies. But your soul was not made for constant availability. Your spirit was made for sacred pauses. You were designed to retreat, to reflect, to refill. The most powerful people I have known, those who walk with quiet dignity, are not the ones always in every room, in every conversation. They are the ones who choose their moments carefully. Their absence speaks louder than most people's noise. They are remembered because they do not give themselves cheaply. Their presence is an event, not an expectation. When you begin to value your own energy, you start to see the difference between being needed and being respected. Some people will only miss what you gave them, not who you are. They will call you back because they want your help, your laughter, your patience. But others, the ones who truly see you, will miss you because your presence meant something sacred. It meant safety, understanding, and light. And it is through absence that you learn which is which. That knowledge is a gift that comes only to those brave enough to step away. Sometimes you must walk away not in anger, but in grace. Let them feel the quiet. Let them sit in the silence you leave behind. The silence will teach them. It will show them that you were not background noise. You were the melody that made their world softer. Your absence becomes your testimony, proving that your presence was never to be taken lightly. And let us not forget, absence teaches you too. When you take a step back, you start to see who values you without your effort, who reaches out without a reason, who shows up even when you're not available to serve them. You begin to understand that love does not chase. It stands still and waits with faith. The people meant for you will not vanish when you rest. They will honor your stillness. They will protect your peace. That is how you learn the difference between those who love your light and those who simply need your warmth. Absence also reintroduces you to yourself. When you stop being constantly available, you finally hear your own heartbeat again. You realize how long you've been running, how much of yourself you've given away without replenishing. You learn to enjoy your own company, to read your thoughts, to understand your desires, to hear your soul. You start remembering that you are not just a giver, you are a being. You are allowed to exist without performance, to rest without guilt, to disappear without explanation. In that sacred solitude, you rediscover your own power. Many fear that stepping back will make them forgotten. But I tell you, my friend, the right people never forget light. They remember it long after it's gone, like the way a song lingers in your chest after the music ends. Your absence is not an erasure. It is an echo. It reminds people of what was beautiful, what was pure, what was real. And in that reminder, your presence becomes unforgettable. When you stop being available to everyone, you start becoming available to yourself. That shift changes everything. Your thoughts become clearer, your energy stronger, your path more certain. You are no longer pulled in 100 directions trying to please others. Instead, you are guided by purpose. You walk slower, but every step matters. You speak less, but your words carry weight. You give less often, but when you give, it changes something in the air. That is what absence teaches. It sharpens your presence into something divine. The world may not understand this at first. They may call you distant, proud, detached. But what they really mean is that you are no longer accessible for their convenience. They confuse your peace for pride because they cannot yet see the sacredness of your silence. Let them misunderstand you. Great souls are rarely understood when they choose themselves. But history remembers those who walked away from noise and returned with wisdom. Absence teaches timing. It teaches patience. It teaches how to let people find their own way to you. If you always meet them halfway, they will never learn the distance you once crossed for them. But when you stop walking toward those who never take a step for you, you make room for those who will. That is how the universe honors your self-respect. It fills the spaces you clear with people and peace that match your worth. You must also know that absence is not punishment, it is perspective. When you create space, you can finally see what was hidden in the blur of constant presence. You see how people behave when you are not around. You see what relationships still breathe without your effort. You see which parts of your life are built on love and which were held together only by your giving. That sight is freedom, because once you see clearly, you can no longer settle for being half seen, half heard, half loved. So step back, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. Let your absence speak where your words cannot. Let people remember you for the light you brought, not the exhaustion you left behind. Be still enough to let others come to you. Be strong enough to let them miss you. Be wise enough to know that if your presence did not teach them your worth, your absence surely will. And when they come back, and they will, you will see in their eyes the truth that absence has written on their hearts. You were never ordinary. You were never replaceable. You were never meant to be everywhere for everyone, all the time. You were meant to be rare, sacred, and unforgettable. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors with locks, keys, and purpose. They are the language through which you tell the world who you are and how you deserve to be treated. When you set boundaries, you are not pushing people away. You are inviting the right ones to come closer with care. There is beauty in a person who knows where their limits lie, because limits are not weakness. Limits are the lines drawn by love, by lessons, and by survival. They are the marks left by the moments you gave too much, trusted too soon, or stayed too long. Every boundary is born from experience, and experience is a teacher that never lies. For years, many of us believed that to be kind was to say yes. We were taught that love meant endless giving, that goodness was measured by how much of ourselves we sacrificed. But a life without boundaries becomes a life without identity. You start to dissolve into everyone else's expectations. You begin to wear their burdens, speak their fears, and lose your own reflection in their needs. There comes a moment when your heart becomes tired of bending. That is when self-respect rises like the morning sun and whispers, "Enough." That whisper becomes your first boundary. It may tremble at first. It may sound like guilt, like selfishness. But it is truth trying to find its voice again. The world does not always celebrate those who set boundaries. Some will call you cold. Others will say you've changed. But the truth is, you are healing. You are reclaiming your energy from people and places that never honored it. You are remembering that your peace is not up for negotiation. There is a holy kind of strength that blooms when you stop apologizing for protecting your soul. You do not owe anyone access to your heart simply because they ask for it. You are not required to carry every wounded spirit that crosses your path. Compassion does not mean self-destruction. Love does not mean losing yourself. When you speak the language of boundaries, you start to sound different. Your no becomes sacred. Your yes becomes deliberate. Your silence becomes powerful. You begin to walk with a grace that says, "I know my worth." And that frightens those who have benefited from your lack of boundaries. They will try to guilt you, charm you, or confuse you into opening your gates again. But wisdom knows the difference between love and manipulation. Boundaries are where wisdom and peace hold hands. Every time you say no to something that disrespects your soul, you are saying yes to something divine inside you. You are saying yes to your time, your energy, your mental clarity, your dreams. You are saying yes to joy that is not borrowed, to love that does not hurt, to relationships that do not demand that you shrink. Boundaries are not just about protecting yourself from others. They are also about protecting yourself from the old versions of you who didn't know better. The you who said yes when your spirit screamed no. The you who kept quiet to keep the peace. The you who accepted less than what was deserved because you were afraid of being alone. Boundaries are how you honor the person you've become. It is not an easy language to learn. The first time you say no, it will tremble on your lips. Your voice may shake. You might second-guess yourself. But do it anyway. Every boundary you set becomes a brick in the foundation of your peace. And the more you practice, the stronger your foundation grows. You begin to understand that boundaries are not just rules. They are self-affirmations. When you tell someone, "I will not allow that," you are also telling yourself, "I am worth protecting." There will be people who misunderstand your silence, your distance, your refusal to engage in certain patterns. Let them misunderstand. You do not owe an explanation for your evolution. Growth often offends those who prefer the version of you that served their comfort. You cannot remain everyone's savior while trying to save yourself. You cannot heal if you keep bleeding for others who refuse to stop cutting you. So you step back, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. You stop showing up to battles that don't need your presence. You stop responding to messages that drain your spirit. You stop apologizing for needing space. That is what boundaries look like in motion. They are acts of self-love performed in silence. You may find that setting boundaries will reveal the truth about the people around you. Some will honor them, understanding that love without respect is not love at all. Others will resist, showing you that they were only comfortable with you when you were available for their needs. Boundaries do not ruin relationships. They reveal which ones were real. The ones meant to stay will stay. They will adapt to your growth because they love your peace more than your availability. The ones meant to go will fall away because your boundaries deny them access to the parts of you they used to exploit. Let them go. Let the doors close softly. What is meant for you will never need to manipulate its way back in. The most misunderstood truth about boundaries is that they are not about control. They are about freedom. When you live without boundaries, you are chained to the moods, demands, and expectations of others. You become reactive instead of intentional. But when you set clear limits, you reclaim control over your time and your emotions. You stop living from a place of obligation and begin to live from a place of choice. You are free to give, but now your giving comes from overflow, not depletion. You are free to love, but your love now flows from strength. You are free to serve, but only when your spirit says yes. That freedom is the purest form of self-respect. There is also a boundary that must exist between your past and your present. You cannot heal in the same environment that broke you. Sometimes the hardest boundary is the one you set with your memories. You stop replaying what went wrong. Stop reopening wounds that time is trying to close. You forgive yourself for the times you let others cross your lines because you didn't yet know how to draw them. Forgiveness is also a boundary. It stops the past from poisoning your peace. Boundaries are not always spoken. Sometimes they are silent. They are the phone calls you no longer return, the doors you no longer reopen, the conversations you no longer entertain. They are the inner voice that says, "I will not go back there." That voice is sacred. Listen to it. It carries the wisdom of every hurt you've survived. Each time you honor that voice, your spirit stands taller. You begin to notice that your life feels lighter, your mind quieter, your days more intentional. That is the quiet reward of self-respect. And oh, how beautiful it is when your boundaries start to attract peace instead of chaos. When you no longer explain why you need rest, why you said no, why you walked away. When your presence becomes your explanation. People will start to feel your boundaries without you needing to say a word. They will know from the way you carry yourself that your energy is not free, that your time is sacred, that your space is earned. You teach the world how to treat you by how you treat yourself. In the stillness that boundaries create, you will meet your true self again. You will discover that you no longer need to chase approval because your peace is no longer negotiable. You will stop apologizing for choosing yourself. You will begin to understand that boundaries are not selfish. They are survival. You cannot pour into anyone if your cup is empty. You cannot heal others if you are constantly breaking yourself. You cannot serve from a place of depletion. Boundaries are how you stay full enough to keep shining. There will come a day when you look back and thank the moments that forced you to draw the line. The times you finally said, no more. The nights you cried because you had to choose yourself. You will realize those were not moments of loss, but of liberation. You will see that every boundary you built was a bridge to peace. You will see how the world around you changed, not because it became kinder, but because you became stronger. Boundaries do not change others, they change you. And when you change, everything around you shifts. When you walk through life without boundaries, you are like a house with open doors in a storm. Everything blows in, dust, wind, chaos. But when you close those doors, not everyone will knock, and that is a blessing. Because the ones who knock and wait to be invited, those are the ones who respect the home you've built within yourself. And you, my friend, are worth that respect. Boundaries keep your spirit from being scattered by the storms of others. They allow your light to burn steadily instead of flickering under pressure. Boundaries are love translated into action. Love for your time, for your health, for your purpose, for your peace. They are the unspoken way of saying, I am sacred. You do not need to announce them loudly. Just live them quietly. Let your energy speak the language of self-respect. Let your silence carry the message that your peace is precious. Let your absence from chaos be your loudest boundary of all. There comes a moment in life when you grow tired of begging to be seen. You grow weary of stretching yourself thin just to be acknowledged, of performing your worth like it is a show meant to please the audience of the world. From childhood, we are taught to seek applause, to be the best, to be liked, to be chosen. We begin to measure our value by the reaction of others, waiting for someone to tell us we are enough. But the truth is, validation is a hunger that never ends when it feeds only on approval. You can starve your soul while the world praises your smile. You can feel invisible even when you are surrounded by attention. The moment you stop chasing validation is the moment you stop being a mirror for others and start being a window into your own light. You see, validation is a beautiful illusion. It feels warm in the beginning, comforting even, like sunlight after a long winter. But soon you realize that it fades as quickly as it came. The same people who praise you today will forget you tomorrow. The same hands that clap for you can close into fists when your truth offends them. When you build your worth on the approval of others, you build your home on sand. Every opinion becomes a storm that threatens to wash you away. But when you start walking in your true worth, you build on rock solid, unmoving, eternal. Your worth becomes your own heartbeat, steady and unshakable. It takes courage to stop seeking validation. It takes strength to look in the mirror and say, I am enough. even when the world remains silent. But that is the beginning of power. Because when you no longer depend on approval, you become unstoppable. You no longer wait to be chosen. You choose yourself. You no longer perform. You live. You no longer seek to please. You seek to be at peace. The world may not understand this kind of strength because it cannot control a soul that knows its own value. There is a deep peace that comes when you realize you don't have to prove your worth to anyone. You don't have to explain why you dream the way you do, why you move differently, why your light shines in a way others cannot understand. Validation taught us to dim our brilliance so others could feel comfortable. True worth teaches us to shine unapologetically. There is a freedom in that light, a quiet rebellion against the noise of comparison and competition. When you walk in your worth, you stop looking sideways. You stop measuring your journey by someone else's timeline. You understand that what is meant for you will find you, even if no one applauds your steps. Every soul on this earth is born with a divine purpose, and that purpose does not require permission. Yet we spend years waiting for someone to tell us it's okay to begin. We wait for approval to love ourselves, to chase our dreams, to leave what no longer serves us. We shrink ourselves to fit into spaces we've outgrown, all for the comfort of validation. But when you stop chasing it, you realize that purpose is not about being liked. It's about being true. You learn to stand alone if standing alone means standing in truth. That is when your spirit begins to glow differently. There are people who will only love you when you agree with them, who will only cheer for you when you are beneath them. Their validation is conditional, and conditional validation is a cage. You will twist yourself into shapes that please them, and they will still find fault. You will speak softly, and they will call you weak. You will speak boldly, and they will call you arrogant. No matter what you do, the goalposts will move. So stop playing the game. The moment you realize you cannot win the approval of those who do not even approve of themselves, you set yourself free. When you walk in your true worth, you stop begging to sit at tables that do not honor your voice. You build your own table, even if it means sitting alone for a while. You trust that what is aligned with your spirit will find its way to you. And it always does, because worth has a way of attracting what mirrors it. The moment you start honoring your own value, the world begins to reflect it back in unexpected ways. Opportunities appear. People who see you for who you are, not what you can offer, begin to show up. Your energy shifts, and so does everything around you. Chasing validation is like running toward a mirage. You exhaust yourself for something that disappears the moment you reach it. You can spend your entire life trying to be enough for people who have already decided you aren't. But when you stop chasing, you start resting, you start creating, you start breathing. You discover that the approval you were looking for outside of yourself was always supposed to come from within. Your soul doesn't need applause, it needs alignment. It needs to know that your actions match your truth, that your heart is at peace with your choices. That peace is worth more than any compliment. I have learned that true confidence does not shout, it whispers. It moves with quiet grace. It is the kind of confidence that comes from surviving what tried to break you. It comes from knowing that you have been rejected and still risen, overlooked and still shined. You stop needing others to validate your existence because your existence itself is proof of divine intention. You were made with purpose. You were created with meaning. Every breath you take is validation enough. When you stop chasing validation, you start attracting authenticity. You begin to see who truly belongs in your life. People who love you for your truth, not your performance. People who stand beside you even when you are not at your best. You learn to appreciate presence over praise, depth over attention, connection over recognition. You start choosing peace over popularity, purpose over perfection. That shift is how you reclaim your power. The world may tell you that validation is the price of belonging, but belonging that requires you to betray yourself is not belonging, it is bondage. You deserve spaces where your soul can breathe, where your light is not a threat, where your silence is not mistaken for weakness. And those spaces only appear when you stop trying to prove your worth to those who cannot see it. Because your worth is not up for negotiation. It does not increase with applause, and it does not decrease with rejection. It simply is. Like the ocean, it does not ask permission to be vast. Like the stars, it does not need darkness to know its brilliance. Every time you look for validation, you hand someone else the power to define you. But when you know your worth, that power returns home. You stop explaining yourself to people who only listen to respond. You stop apologizing for the way you were made. You start honoring your own rhythm. You learn to trust the quiet knowing within you that says, I am who I am, and that is enough. That voice becomes louder than any opinion. That faith becomes stronger than any rejection. It is not arrogance to walk in your worth. It is gratitude. You are not saying you are better than anyone. You are saying you finally understand you were never less. When you see yourself clearly, you stop accepting half love, half truths, half effort. You stop settling for crumbs when your soul was designed for abundance. You start walking differently, slower, calmer, surer. You start speaking differently, with gentleness, but without apology. The validation that once controlled you becomes irrelevant, because you are no longer waiting to be seen. You are shining on purpose. You will notice that once you stop seeking validation, your silence begins to speak for you. You won't need to prove your worth through words or achievements. Your peace will do the talking. Your energy will announce your confidence before you even open your mouth. People will feel it when you walk into a room. That quiet assurance that comes from someone who knows who they are. That is what true worth looks like. It does not beg, it does not chase. It simply exists unshaken, untamed, undeniable. There will still be moments when you crave validation because the human heart desires to be seen. That craving is not weakness, it is memory. It reminds you of the days when your worth depended on others. But now you will recognize it. You will breathe through it. You will tell yourself, I no longer need them to say it. I know it. And with that, the hunger fades. You fill yourself with your own truth, and that nourishment lasts longer than any applause. When you stop chasing validation, you begin to see how much of your life was shaped by fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being alone. But walking in your worth replaces fear with faith. You start to trust that even if others do not approve, you are still on the right path. You start to understand that not everyone is meant to see your vision, because your vision was never meant for everyone's eyes. You stop explaining your calling to people who were not called to walk with you. You become unshakable, not because life stops testing you, but because validation no longer dictates your response. You stop reacting to every opinion. You stop defending every decision. You start resting in the quiet confidence of knowing your intention. That kind of peace cannot be bought or borrowed. It is earned through the courage of being misunderstood and still remaining authentic. There is a saying that the flower does not chase the bee, it blooms and the bee comes. That is the essence of worth. When you bloom in your truth, what is meant for you will recognize you without you having to chase it. The right people will find you. The right opportunities will appear. The right love will come. Not because you sought validation, but because your authenticity became your magnet. You must remember that validation is a temporary comfort, but worth is a permanent truth. Validation fades with seasons, but worth stands with eternity. Validation depends on others, but worth depends on your creator, your character, and your courage. When you finally understand that, you will stop looking outward for what has always lived within. You will stop begging for love and start embodying it. You will stop asking for acceptance and start radiating it. You will stop trying to be enough and realize you always were. And that realization changes everything.